77 WABC invites you to a family fun day and softball showdown on July 20th with net proceeds benefiting Shriners Children's. John Sterling will call the game as the FDNY takes on the NYPD with special guests Dwight Gooden, Art Shamsky, 77 WABC hosts, including Sid Rosenberg, Anthony Cumia, Lionel, Dominic Carter, and many more. For more info and to buy tickets, go to ShrinersChildren'sChampions.org. That's ShrinersChildren'sChampions.org.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back, folks. This is the More Money Show on WABC on Red Apple Audio Network throughout the country. Thank you for all our new affiliates. We reach coast to coast. We got affiliates in California. We got them in New York. We got them in Maine. We got them down in Florida. So pleased that we have so many stations that have joined us. We are live. We are in color. And I am now so pleased to introduce someone who I call a friend because he is a friend, and someone I just met a couple of years ago, but he has done an amazing job for Donald Trump. I'm talking about Chris Wright, who is the Secretary of Energy policy under Trump and has already achieved amazing things for our country in just 6 months. So, Mr. Secretary, thank you so much for joining and for the great job you've done for our president.
Hey, Steve, thanks so much. Glad to be on your show. Congrats on being coast to coast, and appreciate you always bringing economic common sense to Americans.
Well, you bring a lot of energy sense, and I think I first got to know you when you were writing, you ran a very successful energy company. You wrote a great treatise on why it is so important that America become energy independent, energy dominant. Of course, that's exactly what Donald Trump says. So one question out of the gate here, Chris, is this bill allows more drilling and mining and timber sales and other things. Do I have that right?
Absolutely. I mean, the Biden administration literally went against the rule of law, and they just didn't do these mandated lease sales that the federal government is supposed to do. Mm-hmm. And so the One Big Beautiful Bill restores those regular lease sales that were normal until Biden became president. It has some special opening of lease sales, too, in Alaska that were particularly driven by strong pleas from Alaskan citizens and mostly from the Inuit residents of the North Slope of Alaska that have just not been able to develop their own resources. So lots of good stuff in this bill to just unleash American energy, not with new government subsidies, just getting the government out of the way and letting the private sector do its thing.
Right. By the way, just to clarify something you just said, Mr. Secretary, because this is very important. I'm talking to Chris Wright, who is Donald Trump's Secretary of Energy. So the natives in Alaska, they want the drilling, right? They want to be able to use those resources and to make money. Because when we hear from the environmentalists, the radical environmentalists, they say, "Oh no, this is going to hurt the natives in these areas." But they want this production.
Oh, overwhelmingly in favor of it.
Right.
Look, this is a tough climate world to live in up there. Their whole lives have been harvesting whales and living off a tough environment. Now they have tremendous underground resources, and they've been partners in the development since development started on the North Slope. No greater victims of the left shutting down development in Alaska than the Inuit and Native people of Alaska.
So when you wrote your treatise on energy policy, which was I think 3 or 4 years ago, I loved it because it sounded a lot like what I've been saying and what others have been saying, that we have incredible energy resources in this country. We are not running out of oil. We're not running out of gas. We're not running out of coal. We're still 80% dependent on good old-fashioned fossil fuels, and we're going to use it all, right? We're going to use oil, gas, nuclear power, coal, whatever we have, so we can become energy independent. Is that a fair assessment of your energy policy?
Absolutely. More energy means better lives, means longer, healthier, more opportunity-rich lives, better for the United States' balance of trade, better to supply our allies around the world. But if you want the world to be a better place, it means you want the world to have more energy.
And we have more of it than just about anyone else, right?
We do. We are today by far and away the world's largest producer of oil and by far and away the world's largest producer of natural gas. Together, just those two energy sources provide over 70% of the energy consumed in the United States. And together with coal are responsible for making our long, healthy lives possible. The modern world is not possible without hydrocarbons. And this coming from a guy who went to college to work on nuclear, worked on solar, worked on geothermal. I don't have a background in oil and gas. I'm just passionate about energy. But today, the world, the advantages of hydrocarbons are just immense, and it's proven very hard to replace them. I continue to work. I'm all in on nuclear and geothermal, and if we can get better storage, solar's got a growing future as well. The world needs more energy, but you can't have a well-energized world and high quality of life if you restrict hydrocarbon development like Europe has done, and California and the U.S. was trying to move in that direction as well.
When you did that study, that analysis that when I first met you, I think came out about 3 years ago. Is that available to people? Can they get that on the internet? Is there a website they can go to? Because it's a fantastic report.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and I've actually written 3 versions of it. The last one about 18 months ago, and it's called Bettering Human Lives 2024. And I publish it in the name
I'm sorry, that's
just
to repeat. That's Bettering Human Lives 2024?
Yes, that's the name of the report.
Okay,
and I publish it in the name of Liberty Energy, not in my name, although the report is entirely written by me.
Got it.
Yeah, that's available. And for a corporate report, it's been reasonably widely read. But as you said, Steve, it's sort of an overview of energy, history of energy, overview of climate change, climate economics, and all these trade-offs that are involved in making people's lives better.
One thing that I learned from your report, Mr. Secretary, was, and I think that a lot of people are not aware of this, but there's no country that has reduced its carbon emissions over the last 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 years than the United States. And that's in large part because of what I think is a wonder fuel, which is natural gas. Why are the environmentalists against natural gas when it reduces pollution?
77 WABC invites you to a family fun day and softball showdown on July 20th with net proceeds benefiting Shriners Children's. John Sterling will call the game as the FDNY takes on the NYPD with special guests Dwight Gooden, Art Shamsky, 77 WABC hosts including Sid Rosenberg, Anthony Cumia, Lionel, Dominic Carter, and many more. For more info and to buy tickets, go to ShrinersChildren'sChampions.org. That's ShrinersChildren'sChampions.org.
Greg Kelly here for Colonial Metals Group. China's leading the largest anti-American alliance since World War II, one that's already dumped U.S. bonds, grabbed 43 million acres of our farmland, and is plotting to dethrone the dollar. That's why IRA and 401k savers are protecting their savings with gold. Go to freegoldguide.com/Kelly or call 800-655-5186 for your free gold guide on how to protect your wealth with gold 100% tax-free.
At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Learn more at asuonline.asu.edu.
So I don't think that, look, I've been involved in the climate discussion for 20 to 30 years. Most of the people that are very passionate about climate change, it isn't really about incremental reductions of greenhouse gas emissions. If it was, things like electric vehicles that are neat and nice, rich people love them, but they're not reducers of greenhouse gas emissions. They're just shifters in the kinds of emissions. So, but Steve, to your point, the biggest driver of U.S. reductions has been the shale gas displacing coal in the electricity production sector. It's well over half of all of U.S. greenhouse gas emissions have just come from, by market forces, natural gas displacing coal. And yes, we have reduced greenhouse gas emissions more than the next 7 countries combined.
Wow.
But the biggest piece, market forces. Natural gas displaced coal, not because of environmental regulations. It just became cheaper. That's the way you want things to win in the marketplace, things to become better and things to become cheaper. That's how you better people's lives.
So one of the top priorities for Donald Trump, obviously, given the catastrophic 4 years of Joe Biden, is to bring inflation down, Chris. And one of the ways you do that, apropos of what you were just saying, is when you make energy less expensive, then everything basically comes down in price because energy is the master resource. It's part of everything. I wouldn't have this microphone I'm sitting in front of. I wouldn't have a computer. I wouldn't have the food to eat. I wouldn't have a home to live in if it weren't for energy. So you're committed to bringing energy costs down so that the prices of everything can come down.
So well said, Steve. That's exactly it. Every way we can get barriers out of the way so we can get the production of more energy and just supply and demand, that drives down the price. And look at where we are right now, Steve. We just had a major conflict in the United States. Iran for 46 years, the Middle East. Iran for 46 years has been the main troublemaker in the Middle East. They were getting close to an atomic bomb. Israel and the United States said, hey, that's not acceptable. We've had the biggest live fire battle there in 20 or 30 years. And we sit here today, gasoline prices and diesel prices are 25, 30 cents a gallon cheaper than they were 12 months ago.
Wow.
After a recent conflict in the Middle East. That's hats off to President Trump and his all-in energy agenda. That if you send messages to the marketplace that we're open to produce more, that puts downward pressure on prices. And I think American consumers across the country are benefiting from that today.
You know, Chris, talking to Chris Wright, who was our fantastic Secretary of Energy. When I first met Donald Trump with our buddy Larry Kudlow, we were talking to him in early 2016 about a bunch of policies. And I remember telling him, in part because I had read your papers, I said, with Donald, he wasn't president at that time. I said, if you get the energy policies right, you can make America energy independent. And I'll never forget, he kind of pounded his fist on his table. He said, Steve, I want America to be energy dominant, not energy independent. And is that still his goal, for America to be the energy dominant country in the world?
It's absolutely his goal. And it's so great. Look, I'm a lifelong energy nerd. I was passionate about energy when I was a high school kid. This is a president who's an East Coast real estate developer. He's never been in the energy business, but he instinctually gets how important energy is, that energy matters for American people. It matters for geopolitics. It matters for national security. He is all in 7 days a week on energy dominance.
So one last question, if I may, sir, and I appreciate so much on the day after the 4th of July, you're taking a few minutes out of your busy time. You're probably working 70 hours a week. When you work for Donald Trump, that's what people do. So can you explain to us very quickly what this does about the green energy, Green New Deal? Now, my own opinion, by the way, and I'd love your reaction to this, is I'm not against wind power. I'm not against, solar power. I'm not against electric batteries. I want the market to choose which is the most efficient form of energy. I don't want the government to put its thumb on the scale. What is that a fair appraisal of what your all energy policy is?
Very much so, Steve. Very, very much so. We're all about new technologies, new energy, different regions, different areas. There's different right answers for energy. There's no one energy. There's no good energy. There's no bad energy. There's no clean energy. There's no dirty energy. They all just have different sets of trade-offs. But the U.S. had gone down a destructive direction where we were paying, huge amounts of money, subsidies to wind and solar for over 30 years. And what happened was, normally, if you subsidize something, you get more production of it, and you ultimately push prices down. But we were subsidizing actually particularly poor forms of energy that take a lot of land. And most of all, you don't know when the wind is going to blow. You don't know when the sun's going to shine. And so you get these intermittent energy sources that the more we put them on our electricity grid, the more expensive our electricity prices became. And that wasn't a surprise, because Germany did the same thing, as did Denmark and the United Kingdom. They were way ahead of us in putting tons of wind and solar on their grids. And Germany has tripled the electricity prices of the United States. We don't want to go down that pathway. So those were very inefficient subsidies. The taxpayers were paying hundreds of billions of dollars and then in taxes to pay for those subsidies. And then they were paying again as electricity prices became more expensive in the U.S. So we didn't ban wind or solar or EVs at all. As you said, we want them to compete in the marketplace. This was
Good.
just an end to the subsidies to buy electric vehicles. And over the next 2 or 3 years, an end to the subsidies for wind and solar developers. But solar is going to continue to develop. Solar technology is getting better.
Right.
You'll continue to see solar developed in the United States. Without subsidies, I don't know how much
I
wind
agree.
development we'll see.
Yeah. I agree, Mr. Secretary. I've always said the worst thing that ever happened to the solar and wind industry was the government subsidizing it. I mean, I think it will do better if we just leave the government out of it. One last question on the way out, sir. Can we see gas prices go below $3 a gallon? It was up to as high as $5 a gallon under Biden. With these pro-energy policies, do you think we could see maybe $2.80, $2.75 gallon of gas? What do you think?
So it's not impossible, but I think we got to look at where gasoline prices are today. If you correct for inflation, they're the lowest they've been in 20 years.
That's
except
amazing.
For the COVID year. Obviously, everything collapsed in COVID. So the prices for gasoline and diesel we have today are quite low. So I would say the goal, of course, is as low as possible. But I would consider success if we could keep them down low where they are right now for as long as possible. They might dip below $3, but even if they don't, if we can keep them down here at just over $3 a gallon and pushing against inflation, they're lower than they were a year ago. What else is much cheaper today than it was a year ago? So I feel good about where we are right now.
Last question on the way out, sir. You talk about energy. Have you ever met anybody who has more energy than Donald Trump?
No, is the short answer. He is unbelievably tireless all day long, every day, all into the evening, back at it the next morning, his travel schedule, the work schedule. I'm a pretty hard driving guy, but oh my God, he is next level. He is next level of energy.
I know exactly what you're talking about, having spent a lot of time with him as well. Well, Mr. Secretary, you're doing an amazing job. Thank you. Please come on the show again and give us an update. You're delivering for the president cheap and affordable and abundant energy. So thank you so much for your service to our country. We'll be right back. We'll be taking your calls at 1-800-848-9222 when we get back on The More Money Show.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
77 WABC invites you to a family fun day and softball showdown on July 20th with net proceeds benefiting Shriners Children's. John Sterling will call the game as the FDNY takes on the NYPD with special guests Dwight Gooden, Art Shamsky, 77 WABC hosts including Sid Rosenberg, Anthony Cumia, Lionel, Dominic Carter, and many more. For more info and to buy tickets, go to ShrinersChildren'sChampions.org. That's ShrinersChildren'sChampions.org.